Hiya, Amy here, and I cannot get enough of my embossing folders, so that's what we're going to play with today. So I have a quick little video here. I'm just going to show you a technique. It kind of plays off of my previous video, but I wanted to try it a little bit differently. So I'm showing you some of the products that I'm using. I have a couple of 3D embossing folders, some very lightweight, inexpensive colored cardstock, and this beautiful, newish to me product. It's a metallic polish. It comes with that cool applicator right in the top of the container, but I'm actually going to use a blending tool for today's technique. So I have two stencils here. These are both from A Colorful Life Designs. I do have a coupon listed on the screen, and I will link it in the video description box, as well as the other products that I used. But I'm just using this Ranger blending tool rather than the foam, because I want to have a little bit more control. So I'm just going to use some of that excess metallic powder. I've gotten, I think this is maybe my 5th color now. I'm kind of slowly collecting these colors, but I gotta say I'm really pleased with this. I wasn't sure what to expect. They do work a little bit differently than any of the other kind of mediums that I have in my craft room. They're this metallic polish. Now they're not meant to be thick, so it's not anything that you're gonna wanna use like a little wedge on to kind of put through your stencil like you would like a glitter gel or a paste or anything like that. It's kind of meant to go on thin, so it's not going to give you a lot of dimension or bulk, but it dries exceptionally fast, and I'm having so much fun playing with these guys, and it's such beautiful shimmer. So I do open the window when I work with them because they do have a bit of a strong smell. Not so much on the card itself, but just having the container open, it smells a little bit like car modeling paint, if you're familiar with those little teeny tiny little jars where people would use like a little fine point brush and paint their model cars or things like that. That's kind of what the smell reminds me of, and it is a little strong. So I usually open the window when I work with it just to kind of, you know, get some good ventilation. But here I'm going to show you, isn't that gorgeous? So this is actually a new color that I just got. It's actually a rose gold. It looks a little bit silver, but there is a little bit more pink in it than in the pearl color, which I also have and also kind of looks silver. So I'm just going to do this again with the split mandala. Now, as you can see, I have a very thin coat on the blending tool, and I'm trying to not be too aggressive as I put it down on the stencil. I kind of picked ones that deliberately didn't have big, huge openings. I wanted it to have detail, but I didn't want the openings to be really big. I wanted to see, you know, how it did in this type of stencil. So I'm just putting more on this little blending foam and just kind of making sure it's flat on there. I don't want to accidentally push some underneath the stencil because I don't really have pixie spray, or if there is any on here, it's very, very minimal. So I'm just kind of circling gently around the stencil and putting the metallic gilding polish down. And not really much to it here. You can see in that open space on the top, I just kind of brush it almost in streaks. But I gotta tell you, by the time I even finished this one, the first one was already dry. So I did them back to back. So that's definitely another benefit of using something like this rather than a glitz glitter gel, just because there's really not much wait time at all. I have been playing with these products and creating other cards with, you know, different techniques, some with embossing folders and things like that. But I get asked if it needs to be set with any water or any fixative or anything. I have not been using one, and you'll see in a little bit, I rub my fingers all over it and none of it comes off. So it's pretty impressive that way. I don't know if there's some sort of binder in it, but look at that detail. Isn't that fantastic? So it's not raised like a gel. You can see here, I'm rubbing like crazy, and that there's not much time passed. It was just the time of me working on that other panel, and this first one is already completely dry and nothing is rubbing off. So I find that really cool. Now, the next step that I'm doing here is I'm throwing it in a 3D embossing folder. The reason I'm doing this is because on my last video using embossing folders and stencils in this product, I kind of went backwards. I embossed it first and then tried to stencil through it, but there was just too much texture on the panel to get a good depiction of what the stencil is supposed to be. So people are like, why don't you try the stencil first? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that. And so here I'm just inspecting the embossing folder. The main reason I didn't do that the first time was because I didn't know if it was going to kind of put a bunch of this in the embossing folder, and this stuff does wash off fine off my stencils with soap and water, so I'm not sure why I was hesitant, but I was just envisioning it getting stuck all in the nooks and crannies on the embossing folders and driving me crazy. But as you can see, that didn't even happen, and if it did, it's no bigs. I could have just washed it in the sink with soap and water. So it's kind of just being lazy, but this definitely works. So if you're gonna do stenciling and embossing folders, wow, isn't that amazing? Do the stencil first and then run it through the embossing folder. So then you can get this amazing 3D texture with the embossing and then still get the detail and all the goodness from your stencil. So again, I'm inspecting this one. Nothing stuck in there. So now I have two awesome panels. I'm just gonna stick them down to these A2 size card bases. Stick around with me to the end. I'll show you the finished cards. But I'm just attaching them down. I'm not really using any dimension. I did cut them smaller just to give that nice little white border. But I'm just attaching them down. And then basically I'm just kind of figuring out, winging it, what I want to put on it to finish the cards. So the backgrounds are definitely the showstoppers here. I don't really want to do anything that takes away from the beauty of the background here, between the texture and the shimmer and the detail of that awesome stencil. So basically I decided to just bust out my sentiment book. So this is how I store my die cut sentiments, so I have them ready to go. So I just went shopping in my sentiment book. So these are just baseball card protector sheets, and I will link those as well below, but I picked out a couple dies with these can't think of what it's called. The name has evaded me. This paper. Oh, holographic. Oy. Oh, it's been a day. Anyway, so I used this holographic paper and die cut out these two sentiments and just glued them down with some liquid glue. So it's pretty simple, pretty cut and dry, but I wanted to follow up to my other video and show you guys that yes, you can absolutely do your blending through a stencil first and then run it through an embossing folder. So I hope you find this helpful. If you did, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. And like I said, I will link all of the products that I used in the video description box below, like the polish and the embossing folder, stencils, all that good stuff. And I'll also link related videos. So thanks so much for watching. I'll check you next time. Bye.